An Eye for an Eye podcast contains subject matters that many may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
I feel a little bit safer. Not totally safe. I'm still shaking a bit, but a little bit safer. I left my house at 11:30. They were both dead by 1. I refuse to live in fear. I felt like I was cleaning up a mess. Worse than spilled food. Worse than vomit. Worse than shit.
I hope so.
Are you gonna be okay?
You gonna be okay? I'm not sure, but I'm here today.
That was a rhyme and it wasn't too bad. What you said right there honestly didn't make me sad. So we'll continue on.
Okay. Oh, we on the way.
It's getting fucking late.
All right, everybody. We're back with an Eye for an Eye podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and I'm here with your boy,
Matty Ice. Hello.
Hey, hello, everybody.
We're back.
We are back, ready to attack the next case. Last week we covered Mary Bell. Thank you guys for your feedback on the case. We've had
very much appreciated.
We've had so much feedback. I know we seem to be begging, but it's very, very helpful when you rate and review our podcast. Not only does it help our show get noticed more in iTunes, it just really helps our souls be lifted to the skies.
It's critical for us.
Honestly, and the feedback doesn't always have to be positive.
No.
We're looking for feedback. So it's like whatever your brain's telling you when you're listening to the show, type it on up and send it on over via Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, whatever you listen on, iHeartRadio. We're on there. We're on Spotify.
I was told this week that my voice makes me sound like a vampire in some way.
Yeah, we wanted to shout out.
And for that reason alone, we want to shout some people out.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little shout-out corner real quick for the people that have loved and supported us and have really been vocal about it on all of our social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, on Apple iTunes, on different reviews. We want to shout all you guys out. So the first one that Matt mentioned we want to shout out is our good friend El Nino.
El Nino.
A.K.A. Athena. Athena killed us with her comments today. So she's so amazing on our Instagram account, which is Eye for iPod if you want to follow us. But and that's a good place to go because we always post visuals of who we're speaking of. Just because I'm a visual learner, I'm a visual person, I like to see who the case is about.
Yes.
But Matt, tell me what she said about you.
Oh man, I got it. I gotta pull it up here on my phone.
So
it was truly incredible.
Just the background. She messaged me, and she's like me. She wants to see visual, like a vision. She wants to know who's speaking, who's behind the voices. And so I posted a picture of Matt curled up in a ball over Her Majesty's Pleasure sentencing, which, if you don't know what it is, go check out episode 11. We discuss it because it was what ended up happening in that case. It's actually pretty cool sentencing, and as Matt says over and over again in the podcast, it's something that would chill him to the bone.
And it literally did, so
we posted a picture of him being chilled to the bone, and she is my favorite person on the planet Earth now because what she said.
Deadass, I was in tears at work. I could not stop laughing. My boss even had to make a comment like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Man, I can't even tell you."
Oh, it was the most glorious thing I've ever seen in my life. So
out of context, it just sounds weird, but it is hilarious.
Do you have it pulled up?
I do.
All right,
I do have it pulled up. So, oh man,
it's just so great.
It's so good. I can't help but laugh. So the tagline under this post is, when Matt was having an existential crisis over what the sentence Her Majesty's Pleasure meant during recording episode 11. And El Nino, our good friend, comments, "This isn't Matt. It can't be." Swear to God, it's me, yo. In my head, he has a beard and shaggy hair. Maybe a peach fuzz mustache and is always chewing on a toothpick. Wait, my favorite part. With a sexy, condescending grin and an intense stare. And I thought he might dress like a vampire. Oh my God. Plus, his voice is identical with...
Out of a hottie, married you.
Yes, C.A. Conover. What the hell? Speaking of that, check out WTH3. All of you guys, please, check it out.
Check it out.
Our mini-sodes. Thanks for ruining my vision. El Nino,
sorry.
I cannot lie. I haven't laughed that hard in a long time. That had me dying.
We love you and your comments. You honestly
That was
brighten
so
our days.
funny.
And that one, hands down, will probably always be the best comment.
Totally made my day, honestly. If anybody tops that, you guys will be on another level, because that was amazing.
So thank you for that, El Nino, a.k.a.
Mind you, I can barely grow facial hair. This is the truth. I'm 26, and I still struggle to grow facial hair.
I think my voice makes me look like... Because she said... So I posted a picture of myself after from my Glam and Gouda Instagram page, and my eye's missing. And she said, I always knew you were gorgeous. And I'm like, I love this girl. You're just such... If you saw me now, you'd be like, no, we could work on it. All dolled up, I can understand, though. But thank you so much for that. That was really nice. And saying, Matt, it ruined your vampire dreams. I do apologize about that. But we wanted to shout out a few more people real quick. So we really wanted to give a huge shout out to Rachel Gregorino. I don't know if I fucked up the pronunciation of that, but she made our badass new cover art for all of our podcasts. We got 3 actually from her, so you'll definitely be seeing all 3 of those throughout, as we continue to grow as a podcast. They are the most amazing. If you need a graphic designer, that's who you should go to. Her information's going to be in the show notes of every single episode, because now she is the face of every single episode, and we absolutely love her designs. We actually couldn't even decide ourselves. We had to have a vote, and people were torn. It was literally a 50-50 split. It was bananas, but we love you. Thank you so much for the badass logo. We loved our old logo, but it didn't meet the criteria size-wise, and then it got fuzzy. So we just wanted to change it up a little bit, make it a little bit more clean, more logo-y instead of picture-y. But we love our last logo, and we love these logos. If you have any art that you want to send our way, or designs that you think would be cool for our podcast, please send them to us. We're on everything. We're on Instagram, Twitter,
Absolutely.
Facebook. Email iForIPod@gmail.com. Everything is iForIPod. So we wanted to shout out a few people who've been consistently interacting with us, leaving us reviews, just being so great, doing above and beyond to make us know that we do have listeners, and when it's not just Matt and I talking to each other, and that's it. So we wanted to shout out Maggie, of course, El Nino, aka Athena, Chelsea, Nadine, John Nathan, of course, Angela, of course. We wanted to shout out Madeline. We wanted to shout out Jennifer, GS489, FSDAFSA.
That's cool. Do whatever you want. We don't care.
Whatever name you choose, that's fine. We have JS59217 or 2017, 5 Smiths 01, and Kate. So we love you all. We're so happy that you've left us reviews and comments, and you've really been such a blessing to our podcast, and we hope it continues. We hope we make you proud. If there's anything you ever want us to do or change, or a case you want to hear, well, anyone, but especially you guys, let us know. We love the communication. We love the constant feedback, and we love you. We just wanted to say we love ya. Now, real quick, I want to get into something a little bit more serious before we get into the case. Matt and I are doing an episode in the next coming weeks regarding the recent
public outcry and exposure to the overwhelming, obviously, pandemic that's been going on of women being abused
and
throughout the world. And men, but
mainly women.
Mainly women. If we're being honest.
Yeah,
we're trying to be very frank on this podcast.
So we want to make an episode a little bit more serious of an episode, of course, because, you know, as much as we want to take these cases seriously, we do like to have a little lighthearted banter. But this situation is serious. It's been going on probably for centuries. I don't know. I've known about sexual abuse, harassment, all of the above forever. Just comes with being a female. I don't know if you can relate because you're a man, but you know, I'm sure you've heard about it. You've seen it yourself. And it's such a hard topic to cover, but it's something that needs to be spoken about. It needs, and now it is. And now we have celebrities speaking out. We have athletes speaking out. We have people with such serious platforms speaking out and actually making movements. And so we'd like to be a part of that. Obviously, we don't have that high of a scale, but we'd love to just have our voices out there as well and say we support you, we love you. We want to share your stories. We want to have your voices heard. And if you're interested in being a part of that episode, please reach out to us directly. You can email us at iforipod@gmail.com. We have a lot of different things that you could help us with. If you don't want to speak on the episode, that's absolutely fine. If you don't want to share your story, that's absolutely fine. There are ways you can help us, you know, bring awareness to such a serious matter. And really the most powerful way to do that is to have this interaction, to have this conversation, to have this engagement. So if you would like to talk, you can message me, direct message us on any of our social media platforms. Again, they're all i4ipod. Or you can email us, and we'd really appreciate, we'd love to get in the conversation with you guys directly, one-on-one, you know, as much as you're willing to share. If you have, you know, different networks that you could connect us to, we absolutely would love to hear from you. And this is something that we don't want to play around with the subject. We really want to make this a powerful episode, and an episode that, you know, reaches everyone.
Absolutely.
So we just want to shout that out. So if you have a story you want to tell, want to be a part of the project, have information, have resources, we'd love to hear from you in any of the ways that we discussed just a minute ago.
Absolutely. Any feedback that anybody wants to offer. We'd like to make this episode as public as possible, and the best way to do that is to have as many voices as we can heard.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, so just let us know. So let's get into today's case, Matt.
Let's dive right in, Lisa.
Episode number 12, fucking it up since day one.
Woo, woo.
All right, today's case, everybody. So we're getting into it. So if you're a true crime junkie like me, I'm sure you've heard of this case. And this is the quintessential eye for an eye case. And you'll know what I mean by the time we get into that part. But there are really, I would say, 3 different opinions on this case, but there's 2 very, very, very concrete sides of the fence, and both have good arguments. So let's get into it.
Yes. Let's dive in.
So Byron David Smith, if you guys know who I'm talking about, get ready. So Byron David Smith, he's now 71 years old, and he is an Air Force vet and is retired from the U.S. State Department, and he worked in the security engineering office. So he did his time in the government, did his time in the military. Old man, now he's 71 years old. All of this takes place when he was about 65. But that's something to keep in mind. He's an old man. Not that really takes away from the crime.
No, it doesn't take away from the crime, but it makes a difference.
Yeah,
and,
well, for sure. Because
pulls the heartstrings a little bit if you don't know.
It does, you're right.
Totally does.
I didn't think about it that way. Smith was a well-traveled man, and he had been to cities such as Moscow, Bangkok, Beijing. He was all over the place again because he was with the Air Force, and he did stuff for the U.S. State Department. Smith's Minnesotan home was known to have been burglarized on numerous occasions, and they reported at least half a dozen times that his house was broken into and shit was stolen. Among the items stolen in these slew of robberies that had happened to this man's house, and mind you, this man lives alone. I don't believe he was ever married. I do not believe he has kids, and if he does, they do not live with him. He is alone in this house. But among the items that were stolen from Byron were thousands of dollars in cash, the watch his father had received after spending nearly a year as a POW in World War II, medals and ribbons Smith had earned in the Air Force during the Vietnam War, several firearms, and a lot of jewelry. Now, the firearms is where some of the arguments come into play here, too.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. Firearms, guns, weapons were stolen from this man's house.
that happened.
And that's scary.
On multiple occasions he was dealing with burglars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't alone.
And the fact that they're stealing weapons from his house, that makes you feel like they're going to come back for more sinister reasons. Because why do you need to steal guns? You know, like, what do you need that for?
Once you've stolen guns and money and jewelry and... I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Like, what else are you looking for?
Yeah, like, why would you steal someone's, like, medals and... trinkets from being a POW or being a vet. Like, that's just sick. That's just horrible. Why would you steal? Like, well, first of all, what are you going to fucking do with that? Can you pawn that stuff? Like, I don't even know. You can.
Yeah, I mean, anything can be flipped.
Whatever. So, let's get into the crime here. Or the quote-unquote crime, because some people don't believe that this was a crime. And that's what we're going to go into. So, on November 22nd, 2012, which is, if you didn't know back then, it's Thanksgiving Day.
Mm-hmm.
And... this was actually my freshman year in college, so this is recently. Only a few years ago, only 6 years ago. Now, so, it's a fairly new case. And remember that, too, because it's the laws, The laws are ever-changing, however, it wasn't that long ago. So think of that as if it happened now, almost. So on Thanksgiving Day, Haley Kiefer, who was 18 years old, and her cousin Nicholas Brady, who was 17 at the time, broke into the home of Byron David Smith, who was then 65.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we stated before, he had been used to this happening over and over and over and over again. They were not the first people. Well, they might have been the actual people, but this was not the first time.
Might have been their first time, wasn't his first time. He was carrying a gun around his home.
Yeah, he after the first couple robberies, he walked around strapped, is what he said. And obviously that means he had guns on him at all times, because he was presumably fearful. So, video surveillance, because he, along with being strapped up, walking around his own home, which is a horrible way to live.
It's sad, honestly, that he felt that insecure in his home.
And beyond that, he did have video surveillance set up around his perimeters of his property, so he could see when these people were trying to break into his house, because this happened way too many times for this to, fly with him anymore. So video surveillance did capture the teens casing the property prior to breaking in. Now, the two teens believed the home was empty and because there were no vehicles. So the two teens believed that the home was empty, presumably because there were no vehicles present on the property. And this will also come into play later. They would be very sorely mistaken, Matt. So
yes.
Little did they know, Byron David Smith was home on Thanksgiving Day by himself, and he was sitting in his basement with a Ruger Mini 14, which is a gun.
Ruger. That's a gun manufacturer.
Ruger Mini 14. Seemingly in wait for the people who broke into his house to wander down to meet their fate. So he was there this entire time. He was watching them on surveillance cameras. And he actually, it almost felt like he was pretty much preparing for it, it felt like.
Yeah, it seemed like he was almost...
anticipating
this happening. I mean, almost like a final
sad.
showdown.
It's happening that often that you can anticipate when it's going to happen.
Yeah, he kind of expected it.
Like, that's a problem in of itself.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Because normally when anyone's burgled, they're not expecting it. That's not something that, like, is a commonality in most people's lives. So he was sitting in the basement, kind of like sitting away. Like, he was almost like a hunter waiting for their prey, is kind of how it feels.
Yeah, it almost seems like he's just kind of... he's prepared for whatever happened. I mean, if anybody came into his house, he knew what he was going to do. So, Nicholas Brady was the first person to come in contact with Smith in the basement. He came down the basement stairs, not knowing, obviously, that Smith was there. And as he made his way down the steps, Byron shot him 3 times. When he fell down, he hit the bottom of the stairs, and he shot him twice more. Smith also set up a handheld recorder on a bookshelf, which captured audio of this. You can hear him saying, "You're dead." That recorder captured that audio right before he shot Brady and killed him, right? I mean, right before he shot him.
Yeah, so the reports basically say that Brady was coming down to the basement, I guess, to try to steal some stuff. Didn't know Byron was there. Byron was sitting in a chair with a gun. At the top of the stairs, he shot Brady. He fell down the stairs. Or he shot Brady, at the top of the stairs. He fell down the stairs, and then he walked up to him and shot him in the head. And he said before he shot him, "You're dead."
Yeah.
So he said, "You're dead," and then, poof. And that's all on recording, and we'll get into that in a minute because, So go on.
So he put Brady's body on a tarp and dragged him into another room, sat down again, and waited with his weapon loaded. And 10 minutes later, of course, more shots are then heard on the audio, and you hear Kiefer scream. And then you hear obviously, her dropping, falling down the stairs. And at that point, no more shots are heard because Smith's rifle jammed. And then he had to reload another weapon, this time a .22 caliber, and shot her multiple times. And at that point, he says again, "You're dying," followed by another gunshot. So then apparently that shot did not kill her, though.
Mm-mm.
And it ended up being a moment later that she died. When he dragged her into another room, she gasped for air. When he realized she was still alive, he fired what he described as a good, clean finishing shot under her chin up into the cranium.
Yeah, so he realized when he had been dragging her into the other room to lay her next to her cousin's body that she was still alive because she gasped for air. And so he reports that he fired a kill shot, basically, into her head to finish her off. He claims that he didn't want her to suffer, so he wanted to kill her quick. And so that's why he fired that kill shot into her head, to, end it. But mind you, he shot both of these teens multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Several times.
It wasn't just like one shot, self-defense.
No, several times, both of them. And...
yeah. And there is some evidence from earlier that day that Brady and Kiefer committed at least a couple of the previous break-ins and were being investigated for prior burglaries, including one earlier on the day that they were killed. Right. So they were being investigated for some of the break-ins on his home and other homes in the neighborhood. So that's something to keep in mind as well. These two were known by the police in the area for prior instances of breaking in, and one or two of which were in Byron's home.
Burglars. And they were seen on video casing his house.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, he was watching them. Kind of reminds me of, like, the Grinch. You know how he has, like, this is such a weird comparison. You know how, like, in the Grinch, he's, like, in his lair, and, like, they're, like, don't know that he's watching them?
Burglars.
And he's, like, has, like, that telescope watching them climb up the mountain. Like, he's, like, casing them out. It's kind of like what Byron was doing. He was kind of sitting away. He was watching these kids, get ready to break into his house, which had happened so many times before. This is the part where I want to give a warning for anyone listening. We are going to play some audio that he recorded that day throughout from here on out of the podcast. It's, I think, important to hear to make a case.
Yes.
We described it, so you know what you're going to hear. It's sad, it's scary, and it is like the end of these people's lives, so I don't want to take that with a grain of salt. But I do think it's important to hear what we're talking about in this recording. Now, as Matt mentioned, Byron had set up, it's like he set up a little shop in his basement. He had a recliner, he had all of his guns, he had water bottles around him, and he set up a recorder. Now, that recorder captured a lot of audio before, after, and during the incident here. So I want to play a little bit of that for you now, and I want to hear what, if you guys have any opinions on it, but just for warning, I would skip over this part. It was the sound captured by digital recorders that he strategically placed around his home that served an ear witness to the shootings. So Smith could be heard talking to himself. Now, like I said, the following is a very disturbing audio clip, and so I'm just warning you now. That was them breaking in. Listen to it.
Oh! You're dead. sorry about that. Oh, yeah. You're dying. Bitch. Cute. I'm sure she thought she was a real pro. I feel a little bit safer. Not totally safe. I'm still shaking a bit, but a little bit safer. I refuse to live in fear. I am not a bleeding heart liberal. I felt like I was cleaning up a mess. Not like spilled food. Not like vomit. Not even like it. Not even like diarrhea. It's the worst mess possible. In some tiny little respect. I was doing my civic duty. Because the law enforcement system wouldn't handle it, and I had to do it. I had to do it. They weren't human. I don't see them as human. I see them as vermin. This bitch was going to go through her life spoiling things for other people. Thieving, robbing, drug use. It's all fun, cool, exciting, highly profitable until somebody kills you. Like I'd give a damn who she is. I'm sorry. So much regret. I try to be a good person. I try to do what I should, be friendly to other people, help them when I can. Try to be a good citizen, not cheat people, be fair. And because I try to be a decent person, they think I'm a patsy. I'm a sucker. They think I'm there for them to take advantage of. Is that the reward for being a good person? And if I gather enough evidence, they might be prosecuted. If they're prosecuted, it might go to court. If it goes to court, they might be found guilty. If they're found guilty, they might spend 6 months, 2 years in jail. And then they're out, and they need money worse than ever, and they're filled with revenge. I cannot live a life like that. I cannot have that chewing on me for the rest of my life. I cannot. I refuse to live with that level of fear.
So, that was part of the gazillion hour recordings that he made. And to be honest, like, listening to it again makes you kind of sad and, like, worried and nervous and angry. Like, it elicits all kinds of emotions because it's like there's so many sides to what happened here. And we'll go over those in a second. So, basically, in the first clip, you would hear Smith say, I feel a little bit safer. Not totally safe. I'm still shaking a bit, but a little bit safer. I left my house at 11:30. They were both dead by 1. I refused to live in fear. I felt like it was cleaning up a mess. Worse than spilled food, worse than vomit, worse than, cleaning up a mess. You're dead. He repeats sentiments like the above multiple times throughout the recording, as you've heard. He says, I feel like I was cleaning up a mess. Not like spilled food, not like vomit, not even like diarrhea. The worst mess possible. And I was stuck with it. I was doing my civic duty. It is the law enforcement system. I had to do it. I had to do it. It's the law system. And it fell in my lap. And she dropped her problem in my lap, and she threw her problem in my face, and I had to clean it up. I have not yet called the sheriff. They weren't together. I don't see them as human. I see them as vermin. And he said again, it's all fun and cool and exciting, highly profitable until someone kills you. I try to be a good person. I try to do what I should, be friendly to other people, help them when I can, try to be a good citizen, not cheat people, be fair. And because I try to be a decent person, they think I'm a patsy, I'm a sucker. They think that I'm there for them to take advantage of. Is that the reward for being a good person? And then they dump this mess on me. It's not a mess like spilled food. He repeats this all the time. Not a mess like vomit. It's not even a mess like diarrhea. It's far worse. Then they take a slice after slice of me. And if I gather enough evidence, they might be prosecuted. If they're prosecuted, it might go to court. If it goes to court, they might be found guilty. And if they're found guilty, they might spend 6 months to 2 years in jail, or to a year in jail. And then they're out. And then they need money worse than ever. And then they're filled with revenge. I cannot live a life like that. I cannot have that chewing on me for the rest of my life. I cannot. I refuse to live with that level of fear in my life.
Wow.
So that's part of what he said in that long recording. And the bits that you heard, it was a little bit fuzzy, I'm sure, because his recording device was from 2012, not top notch.
That's through 3 recording devices there. His recording device, your phone, and our recording device. Yeah. So we're working through a lot.
Before we get into all sides of the fence, we're going to go over the investigation a little bit. Matt, take it away.
Yes. Well, let's get into the actual investigation. The deaths were not immediately reported to police. Please keep that in mind. Smith waited until the next day to let the police know that he had shot these 2 kids, claiming that he did not want to bother the police on Thanksgiving Day. Morrison County Sheriff Michael Wetzel has acknowledged that Brady and Kiefer were there to burglarize Smith's residence.
So it has been acknowledged by the police investigating that that was the intention of these 2.
That was the intention, that they were there to steal from him. Brady's sister later claimed that Brady stole drugs from her home 2 months earlier on August 28th in a case that was still under investigation. Smith's statements to police described delivering killing shots to the heads of both victims after he had shot them on the stairs and they had fallen to the basement floor wounded. So he shot them to wound them and then finished them off.
And he admits that.
He admits that openly. That was not something that was ever in question.
And part of his admission, which maybe I'll try to find an audio clip of it, his excuse after the fact was because he didn't want them to suffer anymore. Like, he couldn't see them suffering, so he wanted to kill them quickly. That's what he said after the fact, mind you. That is not... The ramblings you just heard were also after the shooting. So it's pretty much 2 sides of the fence, and I don't know what the reality in his mind is. But just so you know, that's what he told the detectives is why he fired the kill shots.
Right. Which is a little bit ironic, I think, but we'll talk about that a little later. So, in his statement, Smith said that that I want to say like Michelle Pfeiffer, that Kiefer had let out a short laugh after she fell down the stairs. He heard that, and he said, if you're shooting somebody and they laugh at you, you go again. The audio tape, however, did not record Kiefer laughing, or at least it didn't pick that up. Instead, she was crying, oh my God, and was obviously in fear.
Which you guys heard a couple seconds ago on the audio tape of that happening.
Exactly. So, in interviews with police, Smith did acknowledge that he fired, quote-unquote, more shots than I needed to. And that he fired, again, quote-unquote, a good, clean, finishing shot into Kiefer's head.
So, if you're wondering why this case is so back and forth, I hope you took it in from the beginning, but if you didn't, it's because of the Castle Doctrine Law, or the Stand Your Ground Law, or the protect your shit at all costs or shoot someone's head off law, right? So pretty much every gun owner on the planet Earth, I swear to God, has the same mindset, has the reason they have a gun in the first place for protection, right? And the law states in a lot of places, if you are threatened in your own home, you can use lethal force, right? If you were threatened in your own place and you're being actively threatened, you can use lethal force and it not be counted against you, right? So the castle doctrine debate has to do with the Minnesota's castle law. Now, legal analysis have stated that the initial shooting most likely would have been justified under the castle law, but that the subsequent shots were not justified once the threat had been removed. So you have to think, they were coming down his basement stairs. He shot them both at the top of the stairs.
Yep.
Once, right? Or like twice. And they fell down the stairs. Still alive, but very badly wounded. That is where the legal definition of the castle law draws the line, right? If that stopped there, then he probably would not be prosecuted. He wouldn't even be brought to trial, I don't think, because he was protecting his home. Two people were invading his space in his home, encroaching on his, there to steal his belongings, and he stood his ground, right? But those finishing shots that he admits doing and the shots that, the 3 more shots that he fired kind of negate the castle law because once the threat's removed, it's not justifiable anymore. Now, the castle doctrine is also known as the castle law or the defense of habitation. Yeah, I got it right. The defense of habitation law. Now, that's a doctrine that designates a person's abode or any legally occupied place, aka a vehicle or a home. I didn't know a vehicle was part of that, to be honest.
Yeah, if you own it, it's your possession, technically. Yes.
So if you're in your car, you could technically shoot someone and...
Well, if they try to break into your car,
I
believe is what the statute is. Yeah,
protection. So anyways, a vehicle or home as a place in which a person has protections and immunities permitting one in certain circumstances to use force up and including to deadly force to defend oneself against intruder, free from legal prosecution for the consequences of the force used. Now, a person may have a duty to retreat to avoid violence if one can reasonably do so. So you can't just go around shooting people because they walk into your home, regardless of the situation. That's just not exactly how it works. If you're able to, say you're standing in your front door and someone breaks in your back door, I don't know if that's a really good example, but basically if you are able to get away, that's step 1. That's choice 1. We want to choose get the fuck away from the violence, right? We don't want to flee towards it. We don't want to kill people nilly-willy when they walk into our home unless it's causing an immediate danger to you. So they do say if you're able to retreat, because that will take away the castle law if they find that you were able to leave the situation and not have to use a deadly force to get out of it. The castle doctrine negates the duty to retreat when an individual is assaulted in a place where the individual has a right to be, such as within one's home. So maybe my example wasn't correct. Deadly force may be justified in a defense of justifiable homicide applicable in cases, in quotes, when the actor reasonably fears imminent peril of death or serious bodily harm to him or herself or another. Justifiable homicide inside one's home is distinct as a matter of law from castle doctrine. They are 2 different things because the mere occurrence of trespassing and occasionally a subject requirement of fear is sufficient to invoke the castle doctrine. The burden of proof of fact is much less challenging than that of justifying a homicide. In regards to Byron Smith, Hamline University School of Law professor Joseph Olson stated, "I think the first shot is justified. After the person is no longer a threat because they're seriously wounded, the application of self-defense is over," which is what we were talking about. Now, a number of aspects in this case were noted by police as being inconsistent with self-defense, which is why this turns into an issue. This whole case, thinking about it from the outside and 2 kids coming in to rob you shoot them dead because they're trespassing in your home and it poses, you don't know what threat they pose to you. You've had guns stolen from your house.
Right.
You shoot them.
In his scenario, not only did this apply, it almost kicks you in the balls with how many different statutes from this apply to his scenario.
Yeah, but then there's the flip side of it. So there are the inconsistencies with it not being premeditated, right? So like I said, the evidence brings out some inconsistencies in the self-defense argument. Smith moved his truck earlier in the day, and he claimed it was to clean his garage. However, prosecutors, of course, believe it was to mimic the look of him not being home, to kind of bait people who are going to burglarize homes to his house because it looks like he was not there, right? So that's why prosecutors believe he did move his truck. However, he believes, or he doesn't believe, he said it was merely to clean his garage. Another issue that the prosecution had with the case was that Smith recorded at least 6 hours of audio on that digital recorder we were talking about in the basement of his residence. The reason that's most shocking is because in the recordings, he is heard saying things that could be deemed as kind of preempting what was to come, right? So he was sitting in a chair at the bottom of his stairs with a loaded rifle, a tape recorder that captured not only the shootings, but a weird, wild monologue that he had, and I'll try to find a little bit of clips of that.
In your left eye. Bruce, stop by tomorrow morning. No rush, but as soon as convenient. Can you do that? Yeah. Park to the north. 100 yards north of the corner, and walk in from the west. I realize I don't have an appointment, but I would like to see one of the lawyers here.
But prior to the break-in, he is heard on the recording saying, "In your left eye," and mumbling to himself, "I realize I don't have an appointment, but I'd like to see one of the lawyers here." So the prosecution noted that he was reciting that he needed to speak to a lawyer hours and hours and hours before this shooting happened. So their case was that, why would you need a lawyer if people are breaking into your home and you're not, you're following the law? So that's an interesting point that they made, is that the things that he was heard mumbling to himself prior to the shootings were definitely negating parts of the self-defense claim, because why in the world would you need a lawyer if...
He's already preparing a defense, it seems like, in some ways. He knows he's doing something questionable morally, and obviously one of the big tenets of our law is, do you have culpability? Do you understand your guilt and that what you did was wrong? It seems like he did know that. Like, he was preparing for that.
And another thing he said was, "In your left eye." And it was found later that Kiefer was shot in the left eye by Smith, and alleged that the other statement was a rehearsal, like I said, of what he was going to say to an attorney, indicating that he knew he was going to eventually need an attorney that day. Let's get into trial, and then we'll wrap this up and talk about what we think happened here. So Smith's recorded statements, the evidence indicating he had planned the shootings, alongside the excessive number of shots fired, led to the charges brought up of second-degree murder. Smith was initially charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. However, in April 2013, he was indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder. So they did change it from second-degree to first-degree.
Yeah, because they said it was not only planned, but that he lay in wait. And yeah.
So second-degree murder, for those who don't know, is to my knowledge, is you weren't planning it, but what you did ended up in someone dying, correct? Or it was like a spur-of-the-moment killing, right?
Technically, that would be manslaughter. No. So what murder 2 is it's not aggravated. There wasn't an intended, designed killing. But
it was...
You did kill somebody with the intent to kill them.
Okay.
And made sure that they died.
Yeah.
It's not like you hit them with your car and drove away, like vehicular manslaughter would be, or something of that nature. Like, manslaughter means, your actions caused a person to die.
And
murder
it was
means
murder
means you intended for them to die.
So second-degree murder was you did intend for them to die, but it wasn't as elaborately planned out.
And first-degree murder means that you essentially set it up for someone to be killed.
You were the playbook.
While also intending to commit a crime in the meantime, to cover it up or to commit another.
Think about that part too. Is that covering it up is also a crime. So bail was set for Byron at $50,000, which he did post. Now on April 29, 2014, he was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder with premeditation and on 2 counts of second-degree murder after 3 hours of jury deliberations. So I always get so confused that is the reason they bring up so many charges just in case one doesn't get a guilty verdict and the other does?
You can ask for what's called lesser known offenses. So if you charge someone with first degree murder, but they don't believe that the statute is met to apply a first degree murder charge, but they do feel that second degree murder conditions are met.
So that's why they bring up on 30 different charges to see what sticks, kind of.
In a sense, yes, but they also have to make a case for them. Yeah.
It's a more mature and thought out way of throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Exactly. So I'm going to read you guys exactly the difference between first and second degree murder here. And this is straight off the old Google machine.
No Googs!
We always get an answer from Google, We love our old Google machine. All right, so, I love old people, man. So, anyway, the most common separates murder into 2 degrees, first and second degree, and treats voluntary and involuntary manslaughter as separate crimes that do not constitute murder. Second degree murder is any intentional killing with malice aforethought, which means you had bad intentions before the crime was committed.
This is second-degree murder?
This is second-degree murder. But here's the difference. But it is not premeditated or planned.
Oh, so you had bad thoughts.
So you went there with bad intentions.
But you didn't do a whole elaborate...
But you didn't necessarily go there with the mindset of, I'm going to kill this motherfucker tonight. Maybe you brought a gun with you for protection, but you didn't set it up where I know where they stay, I know where they live, I'm going to show up there and boom. Got it. So there's your difference right there.
I love that.
A little bit of a it's a distinct difference, but it's a very...
It is, and it's something that maybe, I didn't know the specifics between the two, so it's definitely something I'm sure our listeners will appreciate, having that little bit there. And one day we're going to have to get my uncle on this because he's a criminal defense lawyer. So anyways, so Byron David Smith was immediately sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, it was stated by the jurors that the audio recordings were named as the biggest influence on their decision. Now, I'm going to quote one juror here, and he said, his name's Wes Hadelstad, and he was one of the 12 jurors on the case, and he quoted, "That was the most damning piece of evidence in my mind. That audio recording of the actual killings and the audio recording of Mr. Smith's interview immediately after his arrest, which we will play, pretty much convinced me that we were dealing with a deranged individual." It needs to be noted that Byron David Smith has tried to appeal his conviction, and that has not gotten him anywhere. That's not worked for him very well.
He has been denied.
This is where the debate comes in. Now, there are kind of 3 parts of the debate, and we're going to get into it with each other, and we're going to get into it with some people who have weighed in on the case themselves. Now, the one side of the debate, I say there's 3 different parts because there's a little middle area, right? So the one is homeboy was self-defense. His house was broken into. He was acting in self-defense. They broke into his house with the intention to do who knows what. I'm assuming rob, but who knows, they stole guns from him before. He was protecting his property. He is a hero, is what people actually say. Second is the man was fed up, scared, tired of being, abused by these neighborhood kids.
Right.
Tired of the police not doing anything about it, because clearly it had happened many times before and nobody was arrested. the charges weren't going through fast enough, or, something was not being done in a timely manner, so he took it into his own hands. So that's the second point. And then the third is he committed cold-blooded murder. He overkilled. He's a murderer. He's disgusting. He killed 2 teens. They weren't going to do any harm. They were just stealing some stuff, which is like some bullshit kid thing, It's not that huge of a deal. He's a monster. He should be locked away for life. So those are the 3 sides to the debate here. Now, the Harmine Law professor, Joseph Daly, commented that the laws surrounding the case were dividing the Little Falls community. Because he said in some states, someone breaks into your home and you are allowed to shoot them dead, period, a.k.a. Texas. Texas has that kind of law where
it's a stand your ground law. I mean, the most recent famous case was obviously Trayvon Martin. Come on, I was testing a little bit. George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin in Florida.
But wasn't he outside?
Yes, but it was said he was in defense of his neighborhood. He was part of a neighborhood watch or whatever it was.
I didn't know that counted. I didn't know that was.
Oh yeah, that was his defense at trial. Was a stand your ground law. I mean, we're definitely going to talk about that case extensively. But yeah, and Fox News host Sean Hannity, if anybody's unfamiliar with Sean Hannity, supported Smith's actions on his show actually, and cited the fact that they broke into his house. These 2 kids were in his house to commit a robbery. Yeah, they were stealing from him. Yeah, and the police chief acknowledged that they were there to commit a crime, to possibly steal from him and possibly hurt him. We don't know.
Yeah, and another guy even took it a step further on Sean Hannity's show, saying the guy should get a Medal of Freedom for what he did.
Yeah. I mean, there's a Facebook page dedicated to Byron that calls him a hero, and it has almost 300 likes and followers.
Which is so. As you see here, there's very distinct sides of the fence, and then there's that kind of I agree, but this is why. So, speaking of that Facebook page,
there's a gray middle ground there. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah. I wanted Matt and I to read a few of the comments on that Facebook page because, Matt said, it's literally called, it's calling him a hero. And I want to show, because on the Facebook page, of course, there's both sides of the fence, right? There's people that believe he should burn in hell, and there's people that believe he should be given that Medal of Freedom.
Yeah, that he did a good thing for his community.
And I thought it was interesting to read some of these quotes from these people. Now, the About Me on the Facebook page does read, I think that people who get caught breaking into other people's homes deserve to be murdered, without hesitation, without mercy, by any means possible. Home invasion is a growing threat and places you and your family at risk. Standing your ground is a good thing. Byron David Smith is an absolute hero for standing his ground and eliminating a threat to his home and property. Now that's the About Me of the Byron David Smith is a Hero Facebook page. And Matt and I are going to go back and forth and just read a few little comments here from people who have vastly different opinions. Back and forth about that. So, Matt, do you want to kick it off with the first one?
I certainly will, Lisa. As far as I am concerned, those 2 teenagers were simply nothing more than terrorists. They were deliberately targeting elderly friends and neighbors who were under medical care for their medications and neighbors who had hunting rifle firearms. My concerns may seem to be overly drawn, but I shudder to think about what those 2 and others involved with them may have actually been involved in.
So I think a little stretched calling them terrorists, but I see the points on both sides, don't you? You see, and we'll discuss how we personally feel in a second, but don't you see these, it's kind of, they are making good arguments for both sides. So another comment says, for killing the time 18-year-old girl after his, mind you, this is directly from Facebook, so any typos are literally from people's comments. So she said, for killing time 18-year-old girl after his gun jammed makes Byron Smith a piece of shit murderer. So I'm guessing what that means is his gun jammed, he had the opportunity to realize what he did, and she was still living at that point, and instead he went around and shot her anyways in the face, under the chin, up through the cranium. That makes him a murderer is pretty much what that one was saying. No. The next one?
I just listened to the documentary. They claimed that he enticed them into his home. How? By sitting in his home reading a book? They broke a window and both of them came into his home uninvited. Actually, they were going to rob him again.
That's a good point, because it is, so many people are like, he was like lying in wait, but how would you know someone is he obviously saw them casing his house, but like, he didn't know on Thanksgiving, on this day, they're gonna come back and try to rob me. Like, how would he ever have known that? That's not something you
That's
can
what I
just
mean.
fucking
Yeah, I don't think
predict.
he was sitting there. That's the thing. You almost want to think that he was sitting there waiting for them. He was probably sitting in his basement watching TV.
Yeah.
Or, like, reading a book or, like,
Yeah.
doing something, just hanging out by himself on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Wasn't he a widower or something?
Yeah, there was no, like, mention of spouse or kids.
So, I mean...
And it was Thanksgiving.
It was Thanksgiving. So, you would assume that there is some reason he was chilling in his basement. I don't think he was just hanging out down there,
But then there's the argument that he moved his car.
That's true.
But we'll go over that. We'll go over those
We
details
will.
in a second. So another one says, Byron David Smith is a coward who baited and shot 2 unarmed teenagers. I'm not much of a death penalty guy, but if anyone deserves it, it's this piece of scum. What a danger he is in a form... What danger was he in from an unarmed, terrified woman who was lying on the ground after already being shot and begging for her life? Anyone who thinks this guy is a hero needs to take a long look in the mirror and look at the evidence. He could have stopped after shooting each one of them once and called the police, an ambulance, and the kids would have lived. And he'd be a free man. This guy was sick in the head and planned to commit the murder. I mean, his gun jammed after shooting the girl once, and he pulls out another gun and executes her while she's heard begging for her life. He's also on tape saying you die now and talking beforehand about shooting someone through the left eye, which is what he did, to an unarmed woman. Coward. You people must think Brock Turner is a hero too, huh? How does this page even exist? If he was a friend or a family member of mine before this, I'd be ashamed and he'd be dead to me. So that was one of the more passionate ones.
Wow, that one had a lot of...
And then I want to read the next one so Matt
indoctrination.
can read the last passionate one. So we each get a passionate person in here.
Yeah.
So the next one says, this is a great transgression of justice. He was in his own home after the break-in previously. He did not go out after these 2. He was a homeowner in his home. I cannot believe he was treated this way.
I don't like him or his victims. What he did was wrong, but I also believe Haley and Nick had a lot of culpability for their own deaths. Perhaps that was down to drugs or not having a fully developed frontal lobe. Who knows for certain? But what I do know is that the Kiefer and Brady families are never going to convince a majority of the public to see their kids as sweet angels who made minor mistakes. They were a pair of punks murdered by a guy who became paranoid in large part because of Nick and Haley, et al. helping to make him that way. No amount of references to wholesome yearbook pictures and how the 2 cousins laughed and played a lot, etc., is going to change that. So, wow, very, very heavy there. I sincerely hope there is never another program produced about this case.
Whoops.
Sorry. One just ended on ID, and I changed it as soon as I realized it was about these murders.
Maybe you'll like ours because we're quoting you directly.
Yeah, hopefully you'll listen to this and be like, oh shit, I said that.
And then the next one says, and I think it's important to read these because it is like back and forth on the case, and we're getting to the end of them, and then we're going to discuss eye for an eye. But the scumbags targeted an older, vulnerable man. He was white and middle class. If he had been black, he would not be in jail. Well, I wrote the question marks because what the fuck? Yes, he would be. If he was black, he would have been in jail when he... Like, what are you talking about? He wouldn't be in jail if he was black.
Yeah.
This person's a little backward.
This person's a little, yeah.
There's so much injustice towards, our black brothers and sisters that it's literally insane. So I don't know what that comment meant. So next one is on you, bro.
Anyone who gets into your property breaking crystals is a threat.
Threat. Well, she meant to say threat.
Threat.
But she said
Period.
bad.
It might have been you. How are you supposed to know they're unarmed? How? Especially in a country where everybody has a gun.
Good point, girl.
You just had one chance to know it, and you'd better shoot first. For much less, many people have been killed by police officers in the USA. Like a deaf man who just did not follow instructions. What a coward and criminal murder against humanity. And the black gentleman who did not open the door and was executed by a police officer of a university. Yeah, big threats.
Do you think she's mean to say threats?
I don't know. I think she means threats.
She said it twice.
Yeah, she did this twice. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, big threats, but 2 white drugged burglars are not a threat, huh? So these white cute burglars were supposed to be protected by the owner of the house they were burglarizing, huh? No threat, but a deaf man or a black man in his car is a big threat, huh?
Literally every single time she has said thread, like THREAD.
So we're convinced that she's confusing those 2 words, thread and threat.
Thread. Okay. That one's powerful, though. We're going to discuss all of these in a second here. So another one says, every time I heard this story on Dateline, I become infuriated. Those kids were criminals and headed for more criminal activities, putting fear in good people. Shame on Morrison County's lawyers for making it okay for people to rob people and turning those kids into victims. And then the last one, Matt, you take it away. Boy, you bring us home.
Let's do it. I feel for Byron Smith. He served his country and then had to suffer with PTSD. Then he is rewarded for his heroism by being robbed and terrorized by local thugs and drug addicts. I feel he absolutely took things too far, but I also feel the shootings were absolutely justified, whether he sat at home prepared for a robbery or not. I refuse to live in fear, is what he said after killing the burglars. He is so right. No one should have to fear for their home and safety. It is so sad that these burglars had to ruin Byron's life along with theirs. He did not know these people and had no clue they were coming, so how he could premeditate their deaths makes absolutely no sense. He was just overly paranoid and protective of his house and his life after being robbed previously and, of course, dealing with PTSD. I am sure he felt like he was back in war, having to protect himself from enemies who were trying to kill him and take advantage of him. There is no way this man deserved life without parole.
I thought that was a powerful one to end with.
I think that is honestly...
And these are all on the Byron David Smith is a Hero Facebook page, which is still live and active. Comments are still in there from December 2017, so like month ago. And we have one more comment from one of our Facebook listeners who comments and listens, and we love her. Madeline, and she said, which I thought was an interesting take on it as well before we get into our thoughts. She said, because I quoted that we're doing this case tonight, and she said, here we go. My thoughts on this are very strong. After listening to all of his audio tapes and watching visual reenactments of what happened in that basement, I think the dude murdered them in cold blood. He lured them in and then murdered them. He is where he deserves to be. That being said, of course, what the teens did was wrong. They broke into houses. But does that mean it warranted a death penalty on their part? Absolutely not. I think this is a great case for you guys, especially considering your podcast name is Eye for an Eye, because that's exactly what happened here. He decided to take their lives and take the law into his own hands, and in return, he had his life taken away from him as well. I think the justice was rightly... I think justice was rightly served in this case. So thank you, Madeline, for your... Please tell me how to say your fucking name, because I don't want to mess it up, and I'm sorry if I keep butchering it. Clearly, I have a problem with pronunciation. We're going to call you Maddie for now. So, Maddie, thank you for your feedback, and I loved that take, because it's just a different one. It's interesting to hear that, it does really reflect the eye for an eye. Literally. Geraldo Rivera, an American attorney, also stated that he would have fired the initial shots, but supported the guilty verdict and expressed disgust over the finishing shot of the girl.
I will say I agree with Geraldo only on what he said about that and his kind of callous way of putting that of, I fired a good clean shot to finish her. Like, dude, what? You're talking about, like... I'm not in favor of hunting anything or anyone or killing anything, obviously, but, I mean, he made it sound like he was out there hunting deer. Like, he was, like, I put a good clean headshot in. Like, dude, you're talking about you just ended a human being's life. Whether or not you were justified, his whole attitude and, I don't know, I mean, the whole attitude of him being on recording and almost kind of, it was like it was a documentary to some degree.
But listen to this. So I was talking to people today about this case, obviously, and someone brought to my attention psychotic symptoms in PTSD patients. Now, apparently, among combat veterans with PTSD, 30% to 40% report auditory or visual hallucinations or delusions. And the presence of psychotic symptoms in PTSD is associated with a more severe level of psychopathology, similar to that of chronic schizophrenia. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I had someone let us read this. I'm not going to mention names, but they let me know their opinions on this, and they said, I suffer from PTSD and trigger-related schizophrenia and manic depressive disorder. And several times while being unmedicated, have come to a few days after with a backpack full of weapons, which were butter knives and Legos, while taking apart electronics to home devices, in quotes, and also have no memory of anything. But people watched and even recorded some of it, and my actions were very dangerous had I not been monitored. So even while on medication, if I'm triggered, I have to force myself through the PTSD, they call them episodes, and they can take anywhere from 3 to 12 days to completely process and refresh. And that's if they come back to back. I'm out for weeks. So that was their response, and thinking maybe this is what Byron suffered from. Because he is a vet. He has been burglarized so many times. And even after being burglarized once, people suffer from PTSD. It's a scary thing to have someone that you don't know that is uninvited bust into your home, no matter how it happens, steal your stuff. It's an unnerving feeling. So, Matt, here are the questions I have for you. Let's discuss.
Let's do it.
First, was this overkill? Yes.
Yes, I would say it was. Absolutely. I mean,
I don't think anyone deserves to die
so here's the thing.
over robbery.
I don't necessarily know about that. I won't make that.
He paused and I'm like,
No, I won't make that blanket statement, because if somebody comes in your house with your intention to rob you and kill you.
Well, you added in kill. I just said rob.
But I think one of these comments on that Facebook page made a great point. How do you know?
You're right.
Are you going to stop them in the middle of your house and be like, hey, just real quick, are you going to kill me or do you just want my stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Point.
Like, there is no way of distinguishing a life-threatening situation and a non-life-threatening situation.
And you should have the wherewithal, if you're going to break into someone's house, there is a risk you're going to get your ass shot to the floor.
Exactly. So here's my thing, though. Why is this overkill? You said yes at the beginning offhand. I hesitated for a second only because I think he knew he was going to kill them. I don't think he ever had a question about that.
Well, I think the definition of overkill is...
He just pumped a bunch of shots into them.
Yeah, one shot would have sufficed, and the other Facebook comment said, you could have called an ambulance. You could have said, but I think in his mind, you're right. I think he did want to kill them because in his ramblings, or at least in his, I don't know if he was in a psychotic state. I don't even know if that was part of the trial at all. It didn't say anything, and I don't understand why it wouldn't be.
Well,
but in his ramblings, he said, I'm scared. I was scared. I didn't know what these kids' intentions were. It's happened a million times. No one has done anything about this.
Yep.
They'll get out of jail, and then they'll be more angry, and they'll come after me again.
Yep.
And I do think that proves intent. I do.
I think his intent was clear. And I think it only was solidified by the fact that he recorded himself
for hours
saying things like this. He could have later at trial said, I fired that many shots. I mean, there were 4 shots in both of them, 3 or 4 shots in both of them. He could have said it was dark. I couldn't see. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I was hitting them. Mm-hmm. Hell, I'm a terrible shot. Mm-hmm. But he literally records himself after they've fallen down the stairs.
And before.
During saying things like,
you're dead.
You're dead. You're dying. Bitch.
That's the most
Yeah, I mean, things like that.
It's definitely...
I don't care what her name was or who she was. He clearly had some... I think also I'll agree with another one of those comments that... And I'm sorry,
Weren't
this was
those comments good?
They were, yeah.
I tried to pull the ones that were most
relevant. I think that was a very pertinent set of comments there. They really did come together, and you get both sides of it. But it was the juror, Hattelstad, that said, the recordings made us realize we were dealing with a deranged individual. Mm-hmm. I could totally see that in a jury room because I really believe that these people probably in deliberation said, fuck them, let's leave the victims out of it. Obviously they were criminals, they were there to commit the crimes. Let's leave them out of it though. We're not going to talk about them. Let's look at the old man. Mm-hmm. What was his state of mind? If you listen to that recording, it's pretty clear what his state of mind was.
But that's the thing. Is it a mental thing, or is he just an angry, upset, scared man? You know what I mean? Is it a mental thing? Because, like I said, we brought up the PTSD conversation, and he was burglarized upwards of 7, 8, 9, 10 times before this. And you could only be burglarized so many times before you fucking lose your mind.
So,
and he was an Army vet, or Air Force vet.
This leads to our next question, then.
Yep.
Was this killing justified?
Ooh, Lord, this is where it gets complicated.
So I'm going to ask you, I'll pose you that question first.
All right. Was it justified? In my mind, okay. Let me break it down a little bit because I can't answer yes or no to that question because it's too hard because I have to explain my reasoning for both sides and then like where I stand.
I can. But I want to hear your explanation.
So my explanation to this, was it justified? No. I don't know. Wait, just tell me yours. I don't know. I don't ever think someone should be killed. I think he should have called the police after the first shot. However, if I had been burglarized 10 times, they're stealing weapons from me. I don't know if they're armed. I don't know who they are. They continue to do it. No one's doing anything. I can empathize with snapping the fuck, especially being in an older age, having possibly PTSD or some kind of traumatic mental incapacitation or whatever. I can completely empathize with that. Now I honestly don't think I can answer is it justified because like I can understand it from both sides. No, I don't think they should have been shot in the face because they broke into this old man's home. But, like the Facebook comment said, how would he have known what their intentions were? How did we know it hasn't gotten more malicious or they weren't doped out on drugs or something and in a wild state of mind? And on the other hand, it's like, I do understand why he did it because it's like, you don't know and then they shouldn't have died, but then they burgled him. What did they think was going to fucking happen? Right.
I mean, they obviously had to know.
There's a risk.
I hope that they knew there was a risk going in. Like, come on.
Wait, do you think it was justified? Oh, I'm excited.
Yes, I do.
Do you?
Yes, I do. 100%. I've thought from the beginning. And here's why. I look at it from both sides. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's hard for me to get into their shoes. But at least I'll think of it as they didn't have the intention to hurt anyone. It seemed like. They didn't think the old guy was home, is what I get at. But Byron David Smith, on the other hand, had been just tortured psychologically tortured to the point that every time he probably left his house, he was worrying if there was going to be stuff in it when he got home. I'm a real estate agent. I was in a house earlier that all the copper had been stolen out of the freaking place. They took all the copper out of the place. I mean, these are people like you just don't know who you're going to get.
And it was multiple people.
And it was multiple people, multiple times. He probably was so paranoid that he thought that anybody that came near his house was considering robbing it, casing the place. I think
10 times.
10 times, upwards of 10 times. I think by that point, and here's how I look at it. If I'm him, I would have been lying in wait. I might have set it up so that, like, I hope they come in tonight.
Yeah, like, enough's enough.
And I'm 26 and I think in pretty good physical shape. I would have been standing there with a baseball bat. I wouldn't have killed anybody, but I could damn sure make sure that you ain't walking out of this place. They're carrying you out of my house.
Yeah.
But this guy was 65 and a veteran.
You're right.
He's probably not in the best physical shape anymore because of his service because of all that he's done. So he's probably thinking, what chance do I have to defend my house?
Yeah.
How am I going to defend my house if someone really wants to come in here? They probably can. He's not going to be able to do too much. So he thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to wait. If I have the chance, I'm going to prove a point and let these fuckers know this is my house. No one comes into my house. And I'm saying that as myself. I would feel that same way. I would never want to feel insecure in my home.
I agree. And like you said, he's a vet. He's probably already in a fragile position. And to be burglarized even once, like we've talked about, could put you in the most sensitive of states, especially with that kind of a background, let alone upwards of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I agree. It's just so hard. I don't know. You know me. It's hard for me to justify killing someone, but I agree. I think after 10 times of calling the police and having to deal with your shit being stolen, having to do with your weapons being stolen, having to do with all your valuables, really things that mean really important things to you. They stole his dad's prisoner of war memorabilia. That is intense, because Lord knows his father is probably not around anymore.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's
that's
sensitive.
a family heirloom.
That's like you stealing, like, peanut.
That's not quite the same thing. But it's still...
Or like my adoption documents.
Right, that would be a perfect example. That's an heirloom. That's something you want to have the rest
Forever.
of your life.
That's my history. That's my past. I agree with you. And so, do you think he was merely protecting himself? You kind of answered that one, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think I was going to say we kind of answered the question.
But what about this part? Do you think that prior break-ins with little to no police intervention played a role? Like,
Absolutely.
for instance, do you think if they had been arrested the second, third, fourth, first time, that he would have still been as paranoid to have...
I don't believe so. I don't believe he would have felt as unprotected as he did. It seems like he sort of felt... And here's the thing.
Well, he said, like, they're not doing anything.
Yeah. It's hard because I agree with you. I don't think anyone deserves to die. But after so many times that these guys stuck their hand in the cookie jar, or whoever it was, if it wasn't them this time and it was someone else before. Clearly they knew
this house was a target.
They knew this place was...
You don't just burglarize the same place 100,000 times if you know that there's a man that's a little bit loose inside ready to kill you. Like, you wouldn't take that chance.
One of these Facebook comments said, and I believe... It seems like this person must have known the area or something, because it says... They were deliberately targeting elderly friends and neighbors who were under medical care for their medications and neighbors who had hunting rifles or firearms. So it seems like these guys kind of had their idea already set of we're going to go for the valuables, we're going to find the easy targets, the elderly people,
That's so sad.
It is. It's terrible. I mean, people that are homebound or not homebound it's despicable to think that people make a living off of doing that or feed an addiction off of doing that, but that's the way of the world. Yeah. And I think that had there been some intervention by police,
he would have felt safer.
He would have at least felt like, okay, I'm not alone out here.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm alone in thinking this, but let me know, because I'm curious in your thoughts. The recording they listened to, right? Obviously, the first part's horrific. You're hearing people die. It almost sounds fake, to be honest. It doesn't even sound real, because obviously that's not something in my reality that, like, I listen to people die all the time. Like, that's horrible. But the part right after that where he's, like, mumbling those, like, statements to himself, that I'm still shaking, like, I still don't feel 100% safe. I can't live a life like that. I cannot have that chewing on me for the rest of my life. I refuse to live with that level of fear in my life. Repeated constantly. And he says, I feel a little bit safer, not totally safe. I'm still shaking, but a little bit safer. And I refuse to live in fear.
That is sad, man.
It's sad. I don't care what, I do care what he did, because that's horrible, but, like, that's so sad. And I think that alone, so the recordings put him in jail, right, for life. And he's currently there. He's 71 right now, in jail still, kicking, still in jail. Again, he's tried to overturn his convictions, has not been successful. But that part of the recording tugged at me a little bit. Like, clearly has some sort of PTSD or some sort of psychotic break, obviously, to be able to, kind of seemingly plan out. Or not plan. You can't plan it out.
That's what I mean. We don't even know that he planned it.
So say he did move his car.
Like Thanksgiving.
Say he did move his car. Say he did have his guns and his armchair. He did not force those kids into his house on that day. They chose to do that.
He could have set it up so, like, I mean, I honestly know people that have guns in strategic places in their house.
It's just probably smart.
It is smart. I mean, for Christ's sake, if
Yeah.
you're in your room and your gun is in a basement safe and someone breaks in your fucking front door, good luck. You know, you got to go buy them to get the gun you need to stop them. Like, so I know like people that are set up like that, but I'm saying like I don't necessarily think that you can ever prove. That's why I'm kind of surprised that he was convicted, because it's hard to prove intent when you can't force someone
to walk into
your house.
They should have had mental evaluations. They should have had all of this to prove that this man was either unstable or like you said, how in the world would he have planned for two separate people to use their own brains to break into his house?
On that day, time that he happened to not be, I mean, he might have been sitting in the living room.
Yeah.
You know, earlier that day, and the TV was on, and they didn't want to come in because they saw him through the window.
Like, if he planned it, then you would think that they would imagine that he was sitting in his basement for a month, just sitting there waiting for someone to break in for a month.
If he had it planned, it would be a scenario where, like, and I've thought about it, like, he got in his car, drove away, had a friend drop him off a mile from his house, and he walked back to his house, snuck in the back door, turned off all the lights, sat there with a shotgun and waited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you could say to me, it was clearly planned that he had this set up. The fact that he had a gun sitting next to him, I mean, dude, I know people that carry everywhere they go.
Yeah.
To church, to the grocery store, to visit their mother at the nursing home. Everywhere they go. And I'm telling you, like, it's not that unusual. In a state like Minnesota, I don't know what it's like. Gun laws are obviously probably not as liberal as a place like Texas, but we're in PA and it's not the most, you know, gun-happy toting state in the world.
What about the argument, which is, I think, where the jury were coming from a little bit with the recording thing, that before it even happened, he was reciting how to call the lawyer? What would you say to that? Because wouldn't that kind of prove that could technically prove that maybe he was anticipating something happening, but you still can't force someone to burglarize your home.
I thought about that, and I actually would say that would be, and that's why, like,
But doesn't it
I
have
liked
to be
what
without
Hattelstad said
doubt?
about the recording. Yeah, that does call into mind reasonable doubt, but it also shows to me that he.
But isn't reasonable doubt to sentence someone? Like, how can you sentence someone to life if there's reasonable doubt? So yes,
reasonable doubt calls into question whether or not the person could have committed the crime. If there's any circumstance that could have been someone else. Okay, so it just has to do with, like, the
physical crime.
No, this is not a question of reasonable doubt. He did it. He's questioning whether or not it was justified for him to do that.
Premeditated.
Exactly. Even if it was premeditated, he was saying that it was to save his own life. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's not a question of reasonable doubt. It's a question of, is he able to be in his home securely and also be able to kill someone without fear of punishment and reprisal?
His defense messed up by calling the castle doctrine into play, or self-defense? Do you think he would have won the case had he said this was like manslaughter? Like, hey, they broke into my house. I shot them out of fear, and I just kept shooting because I was nervous and scared.
Maybe.
So I mean, it was just kind of like circumstance, not.
Let me put it to you like this. If I was on his defense team, I would have seriously played up the fact that this man is 65 years old. Mm-hmm. He's a Vietnam veteran, and he's been dealing with this problem for the last X amount of years. He's lost X amount of dollars to this obvious pest in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And an untold number of sentimentality for the items that were taken from him. Plus, the most important thing...
Sense of security?
His sense of security. I would have played that up to a jury and said, this man felt that there was no choice. He was a raccoon cornered. Where do you go from here? Police wouldn't help him. Neighbors wouldn't help him. What does he do?
Takes it in his own hands.
Takes it into his own hands.
Eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye. There we go. So, but now, again, this case is so intriguing because it's almost like you said, look at it from their perspective. Do they deserve to die for having tried to make a few bucks?
Yeah.
Stolen, obviously it's a crime. They did something terrible and obviously just irreprehensible, But
even in Byron's little recording, he says, so I call the police, so they get arrested, they go to court, they go to trial, they go to jail for 6 months to a year, then they come out more scorned or not reformed.
Pissed off at me that they did this and now I put them in jail.
And it's already happened 10 times before. What's not to say it's going to happen 30 more times down the road?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. That's not the thing. But the one thing I truly believe he was justified for doing was recording what happened. Because I think he was justified in doing that in the sense that he wanted people to know how he felt. Mm-hmm. I think how he felt was the evidence enough to convict him. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I think he was justified in doing that because it's really his way of saying this is the point that I've been driven to. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way to convey that because otherwise it just sounds like out of context it sounds like I just shot these 2 kids as they broke into my house. It's almost like, well, damn, dude, did you have to shoot them? Mm-hmm. You don't know. No, he felt like at this point, I am in no outlet situation. I have to do this or I will be the one that's going to be dead.
Do you think part of the juror's decision, before we wrap this up, was based on the fact, okay, we let him out of jail. He's killed 2 people in self-defense because that's what he would be let off on.
Right.
These were not the only 2 people who burglarized him.
No, we don't believe at least. I mean, probably not.
Yeah. And he's now a threat to the rest of the community because you try him again, he's going to shoot your face off.
Yep.
Do you think that was part of the sentencing thought? Do you think that even went through their minds? Like, okay, if we let this man out, what would be the next steps if
what
people were stupid enough to go back to his home and try to burglarize him?
I absolutely
Would more people be dead?
I absolutely believe that was part of his sentencing. That they looked at that and said, if we let this guy... More so for the future cases than for his. If we let this guy out, what does that say to anybody with a gun who feels threatened? Mm-hmm. I'll pull the trigger and then I'll deal with the consequences later because I felt threatened. Mm-hmm. Granted, anybody in their home could make that argument.
Which is why this case
got so much written publicity and why people are still in so much upheaval about it. But to me, it's almost like... where exactly do you draw the line between what's permissible in saying I felt threatened and what's not a threat and you just perceived it as a threat? Mm-hmm. If I walk past you brandishing a gun and yelling about how the aliens are coming, am I a threat? Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, at least at that point I'm considering it. But if I walk up to you and I have a gun holstered on my hip and my hands in my pockets and I'm listening to music, am I a threat? No, probably not. But somebody...
if you do that and you break into someone's house...
Well, yeah, then you're... Yeah. But I mean, somebody who might not like guns might say, there's a guy walking around openly carrying a gun downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, someone come get this dude. Mm-hmm. Am I a threat? I wouldn't say so. If I saw that, I'd be like, oh, that dude's carrying a nickel-plated Glock. That's cool. Whatever he was carrying. I wouldn't make it a deal. But some people would. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's all about perception. And therefore, I think we need to ask the final question.
Was it eye for an eye? I think Byron David Smith did his version of an eye for an eye.
He certainly gave out his justice. He doled out justice how he felt.
As far as sentencing goes, I do not believe an eye for an eye was met. I don't think the punishment fits the crime. I do believe maybe he should have gotten, I don't know, maybe some jail time. I'm not sure. Because, like, you're right. What is that putting out to society saying, like, okay, where is that line? It's such a fine line. Why is this case justifiable, but this case isn't?
Right.
This man has been burglarized a gazillion times. You've been burglarized once. You shot and killed them dead. He shot and killed them dead, but you're out and he's not. So it's one of those things where it's like the perceived threat. And I mean, who are you to say how threatened someone else feels? Like, we don't know. Like, he was probably shit scared.
Yeah.
And obviously in a different psychotic state, I'm guessing. I'm not a psychologist, but it sounds based on his mumblings that he was just so afraid. And like I talked about with my friend, PTSD-induced psychosis, that's a real thing. PTSD-induced schizophrenia,
Absolutely.
That's a real thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that could absolutely be part of this, but we don't know for sure because that was ever discussed, So I don't believe he should have been given life in prison without parole. I mean, he's a 71-year-old man now. He's going to obviously be spending the rest of even if he got a 15-year sentence, there's a good chance he would have been dead in prison anyways.
He would still die in prison.
So I think that's a harsh sentence for what happened. Yes, he killed 2 people, but those 2 people broke the law, broke into his house multiple times. I don't know. I don't know. I'm so confused on this case.
Yeah.
What do you think? I could go both ways. I could literally see such a reasonable argument for both sides.
I want to agree with you 100% on that. I can see either way how somebody could be
passionate about their side.
Yes, could feel one way or the other. Anytime killing someone is not the exact equivalent of what would have happened to you, that's always a difficult case to decide. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In saying that, what I mean, and I know, I'm sorry that sounds so vague, but if your life isn't immediately threatened, like gun out, I killed them or they would have killed me scenario, it's always like, well, could that have ended differently?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and they were unarmed.
They were unarmed, which is why it's so hard.
The Facebook post said, how did he know that?
How did he know that?
They stole guns from him.
They stole guns, or someone stole guns from. Maybe he thought they were carrying one of his guns. Who knows?
And you think after being vandalized and robbed 10 times, you would think maybe they're going to get smarter. Maybe they know my house now. Maybe they're going to get more malicious.
Maybe they're coming after me now. Maybe they know where I sleep.
Yeah, maybe it's something more extreme this time. Maybe they're getting a little more, desperate for something, bigger, greater, a bigger thrill.
Right.
But yeah, so what do you think? Eye for an eye?
No, I don't believe an eye for an eye was met here. I think, honestly, the fact that this guy is going to spend the rest of his life in jail is just ludicrous. I mean, I do believe that it was a justified shooting because I think at this point he had no, in his mind, other recourse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't necessarily believe that, but like I said, I'm not a 65-year-old man who's been robbed 10 times. Every time he leaves his house, he's nervous.
I'm just imagining my grandparents when they were living.
That's what I mean.
How they would react.
I'm thinking about it as like,
scared.
Yeah, what would you do if you were an elderly person?
Especially my grandpa, who was a POW of the war, and so can you imagine how fragile that mentality is as well?
No, I mean anything like that probably sends them back into a recourse.
I think what would have been a justifiable sentence would have been maybe a year, definitely probation of some sort. You can't just kill people, be like 100% free, and maybe psychiatric help because clearly he was in such a fragile state. At least I think he was in such a fragile state that he felt his only option was to take these vermin out of the world because nobody else was helping him. He felt alone. They continued to come back to his house.
See, that's also another reason, though, why it's so difficult, because that recording makes him sound so
wild,
malicious, and just like,
but like
cruel
the end
almost.
Part of it is kind of, like parts of it make me sad, and then parts of it are like, where did that come from?
Yeah, parts of it make you feel sad.
It's like a killer in a movie.
That's exactly what it feels like. It's almost like
the backstory of a killer in a movie type of thing.
Almost like he's feigning for sympathy, and then his true feelings come to light. But I also kind of felt like, no, I definitely sympathized with him because his situation is terrible. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in that scenario.
Yeah, putting myself in that shoes. You burgling me 10 times. I'm either moving or you're getting tased when you walk through my door. Like, I'm going to set up tasers to smash your ass.
I really think I would probably set it up where, like, if I was robbed a couple times and I thought that
not
they
even
were
a couple.
back,
this was more than a couple. At least half a dozen.
That's what I mean. More than once or twice, I'd be sitting there lying in wait, hoping they came back. Honestly, for probably a couple weeks, I wouldn't be sleeping very well.
My house used to get vandalized a lot when I was little, and my dad would sit outside on our front porch, not with a gun, because we don't do the weapon thing in my family, but he'd sit outside with, like, a baton, which I guess is a weapon, but, like, he'd sit outside and fuck with me. I'm out here ready for you.
Yeah,
like, you vandalized my house one more time, I'm gonna fucking mess your life up one way or another, or call the police instantly. Like, you're gonna be fucked. So come mess with me. Try me. And I think a lot of people would do the same.
I don't think anybody ever wants to feel like they're insecure in the place they're supposed to feel most secure.
No. So this was definitely a wild case, and there's definitely so many opinions to be had, and we'd really love to hear yours.
Please give us some feedback on this one. We want, honestly, if anything, this case, I'm sure, is going to have people
on all the sides.
All over
we read comments from the Hero Facebook page that literally contrast each other completely.
Yeah. And
one side or the other.
I mean, good points on both sides, too. That's the thing. There's no one who was like, oh, wow, that didn't make any sense. Like, they really did kind of all strike a chord with us. It's like, that really is relevant to this
Even
case.
when it's not necessarily in my brain conclusion, they make me rethink my conclusion, because I'm like, that's a good point.
Right.
That's a really good point. That's a good point. Well made. But please go rate, review us, subscribe if you want to hear more. We have some fun little mini-sodes that we have a new series coming out called What the Hell Happened Here?
WTH3.
And actually, I think I'm going to release the first episode before this one. So if you haven't listened to it at this point, go backwards and listen to it. Well, I thank you, Matt, and please give us your feedback. Let us know. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, all iFriedPod or iFriedPodcast. You'll find us. We have a new badass logo. Shout out to Rachel again for being amazing.
Rachel, you killed it.
Killing and chilling as always. So we're signing off here. Matt, good night. Keep your house safe.
I will, Lisa. I hope you do the same.
No.
Brady and Kuiper, yeah, we definitely also have to send our condolences to their families.
And you know...
Because it's a terrible situation they were in, too, if they were drug addicts, obviously, you know.
Or even if they were just kids.
Or if they were just idiot
stupid
kids, yeah. I mean, they could have just been idiots.
But, like, come on now.
Yeah, at the same time, if you break into someone's house,
Let that be a lesson. The moral of today's episode is...
Don't break into people's houses.
Or, if you do, expect the worst.
Yeah.
Go in expecting the worst, hoping
Your
for the
ass
best.
will get shot.
Yeah. So on that note, we love you. Thank you for tuning in with us again. This is definitely a wild case. Sayonara, motherfuckers.
See ya.
We start tonight with breaking news out of Little Falls. Byron Smith is guilty of first-degree murder for the 2012 shooting deaths of two teenagers who broke into his home. The jury reached its decision just hours ago, and we have team coverage tonight at Little Falls.
Let's begin with 5 Eyewitness News reporter Beth McDonough, who has been following this case since the very beginning. Beth?
Like the falls on the Mississippi River that run through town, the current of this community is churning.
We were not surprised. It seemed like most of the evidence was against him.
For more than a year, Little Falls watched a real life and death drama. The guilty verdict in the Byron Smith case brings with it strong opinions.
I felt it was wrong. I felt that he had a right to defend himself, although he didn't have to overkill.
The case fueled debate over how far people can go in defending themselves in their own homes.
You should have stopped with a couple of shells. That was enough.
For Little Falls, the waiting and wondering is now over.
Everyone in Little Falls is connected. Everyone knows everyone else. It ripped the town apart pretty bad.
This verdict brings a turbulent chapter in this town's history to a close.